Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wind Down Friday. Today, our special guest is Chet Babla, Senior Vice President of Strategic Marketing at Indie Semiconductor. Hi, Chet. Welcome aboard. How is it going?
Thank you, Maurizio. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to see you. Thanks a lot for your time. So, Wind Down Friday. Today, we will try to understand more about you, to know more about your career, so reflecting on your career. So let's understand what has been the most exciting technological shift that you have seen, for example, in the automotive industry.
Yeah. I fortunately or unfortunately, I've been around a while, so it's over 30 years in semiconductors. You mentioned specifically automotive. Actually, when I started in the semiconductor industry, no one wanted to work in the automotive group that we had. It was always seen as the boring end of technology. Nothing interesting was happening. It was just bashing pieces of metal.
Mm.
And I think for me, it's the way that the automotive product itself and the industry has been transformed by semiconductors. So for me, that's really been incredible to see, both as an observer, but also taking part in that transformation as well. And if you look today, the user experience within the car, all of the safety mechanisms, the automation of driving, the electrification of drivetrains, all of that has been enabled by semiconductors. It's an incredible industry now. I think last I looked, it's like this year about $80 billion worth of semiconductors are targeting the automotive market. So it's pretty incredible transformation, really.
Yeah, indeed. So during your career from your early days, you also navigated in ARM, this company. So how has your experience at ARM shaped your vision, your strategic vision for indie semiconductor product development and market aspects?
Okay. Yeah, I've had the fortune to have worked at Arm. I was leading the automotive division at Arm.
Great.
Uh, Arm has this unique position in the industry. It's kind of like the Switzerland of semiconductors. Arm will work with everyone. But most importantly, of course, the immediate customers of Arm are the silicon companies. But actually, Arm touches the whole of the ecosystem. So whether it's the OEMs, the hyperscalers, the software vendors. So
Mm.
there's a real, system integrators. There's a real opportunity to gain real insights from across the ecosystem. And I think that was a incredible opportunity for me to experience that because you learn, one, you access the widest ecosystem, but it also you learn to speak to different stakeholders and understand what are their careabouts from their positioning. So that's a really important piece of experience that I had in my career, which has also helped me in my subsequent roles. And so that's been incredible. Not just Arm as well, other companies I've worked at, MediaTek, for example. I was lucky enough to be able to drive their first automotive win outside of the China market. So I learned a lot around that. So I think all of the experiences you gain can bring something, but I think the ability to engage with a wide ecosystem and understand their needs, their requirements, their motivations from their position was really interesting that I can bring with me to my subsequent experiences.
So, how do you approach expanding the relationships with the tier one automotive OEMs? So, what's the biggest challenges in that process?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, and I mentioned when I first started in my career, no one wanted to work in automotive. There wasn't really a product there. But, along the years, obviously the industry has developed all of these new semiconductor capabilities. I think pre-COVID, there was still an element of OEM tier one.
Mm.
Why do I need to talk to a tier two, tier three component vendor, right? I just talk to the tier ones. And I think COVID really created this huge impact in the industry where, in many cases, one microcontroller or a simple analog component was suddenly causing, production line halt. So I think that challenge of OEMs, tier ones wanting to know why should I talk to you has totally gone now. The industry has gone from this kind of pyramid of OEM at the top and the component vendor right at the bottom. That model has kind of gone now. So semiconductor suppliers like Indie generally have an open door to talk to OEMs and tier one. So it's less about educating what is a semiconductor and more about what is the overall value that a semiconductor vendor and our products can bring. So people want to know, okay, um, user experience is really important part of my OEM brand. What are you doing that's going to help me transform that, right? So, or there's a lot of new safety regulation. How is your silicon going to help me achieve those requirements from regulation from NCAP? So the conversation has become easier, but now you need to help explain, okay, well, what is the benefit you can deliver, not the features, the benefits. So that's kind of how the conversation has evolved now.
So could you share more about in this work in autonomous driving, autonomous vehicle? So what trends, what future trends you see? Are you anticipating?
Yeah. So I mean, actually, our primary focus at the moment is more ADAS, so driver assistance and driver automation. I think full autonomy is something that will come with time, but
Hmm.
for us, our focus is more driver assistance, here and now safety, how we can make a difference. So I think over the last few years, the regulatory environment has really been advancing the needs for more safety, more sensing. One of the most recent things was here in the US, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration has released new automatic emergency braking legislation. I mean, Europe's had it for a long time, but what the TSA have done is also incorporate nighttime sensing as a key part of the requirement.
Hmm.
That's really hard to do. If you look at, camera sensors struggle because of the low light conditions. Radar may not have the required resolution to be able to detect a pedestrian at nighttime. So I think these are some really interesting new requirements that are being brought to the industry. So we're putting a lot of effort into how can we improve the sensing capability of cameras? One of the areas that's seeing a lot of innovation is the color filter arrays that are used with sensors. So you might be familiar with RGB sensors for cameras, right? So there's new sensor filter arrays like RCCB, RCCG, which bring clear pixels, which is great for low light detection. But the flip side is you start to lose chrominance detection. So red lights could be mistaken as amber or orange, which if you're going to higher levels of automation, that's quite a dangerous thing to happen if the car can't detect it's a red light. So we're putting a lot of effort around the image signal processing to be able to drive the higher performance for low light conditions, but don't sacrifice that chrominance capability. So that's just an example on camera. On radar, we're doing a lot of work around not just forward-facing radar, 77 gigahertz, but also in-cabin sensing as well. So this is a new area where people are looking to see how can I have improved occupant monitoring systems. So, for example, if you've got a baby left in the back, it's in a car seat, the camera isn't facing, is blocked by the car seat. How do you detect there's a baby there? So radar can help in that area. So we're looking at 120 gigahertz, very high frequency radar. So a lot of innovations around camera and radar that we're focused on. And then longer term, LiDAR will get deployed for higher levels of automation. And we have solutions around LiDAR as well. So they're the key areas that we're focused on. I think we're the only semiconductor company that has solutions for camera, radar, LiDAR, and ultrasonic as well. So really exciting area to be developing new innovations for.
So what about photonics? So in the semiconductor as a strong focus on photonics and mixed signals as system on chip. So how do you see this technology within the industry?
Yeah, I think mixed signal is kind of the bread and butter of the company. That's really where we started. Digital, analog, RF, power, bringing all of those different design capabilities together. That's how the company actually started differentiating. So, whenever there's going to be some level of sensing to be done, or there's an analog interface somewhere in the world, so mixed signal will always be required, and the car is a good example of that. So we continue to develop mixed signal solutions for all of these different use cases.
Okay.
Photonics is a more interesting area. We've made a couple of acquisitions in that space. So we now have the laser capability, detector capability, optical engines, superluminescent LEDs. So this is an area that we're seeing increasingly getting interest in automotive. I mentioned LiDAR. So that's a good example of using 1550 nanometer lasers, for example, detectors, doing high levels of integration into photonic integrated component capability. So we do see this as being a long-term, very interesting area. And then I mentioned super luminescent LEDs. You use those in head-up displays, for example, inside cars as well. So it is a growing area. I think there's still a long way for the industry to go to fully deploy these kind of component capabilities, but we see it happening over the next kind of decade. So we're great to be working at the forefront of that as well.
So, as the philosophy of Wind Down Friday, beyond your job. So, like my last question about so outside your work, what are about your hobbies? How do you unwind and maintain a wealthy work-life balance? So,
Yeah.
any hobbies, passion? Tell us more
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you're right. Work can consume every moment of the day, so it is important to take some time out. So, here in California, where I've been living for the last year, we're lucky enough to have a lot of mountains nearby. So, I love going mountain biking. Actually, I went this morning, earlier today, a quick 1 hour ride up into the hills, seeing the sunrise. So, that's really a great
Nice.
way to start the day. And of course, hiking as well is great as well. And we're not too far from the beach as well. So at the weekend, maybe my wife and I will go hiking to the beach. So I think keeping active, but being fortunate that we've got some really great countryside and landscape nearby for us to be able to enjoy that.
Good, good. So, okay, so I wish you a great weekend now. So with your hobbies. So thanks a lot, Chet, for your time. We are in conclusion. Thanks a lot for joining us at Wind Down Friday. Have a good weekend and see you next.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for your time today, Maurizio. Have a good weekend.